This is a snapshot of a weather chart. This shows the weather conditions of a place, Kolkata, for a particular day. Now here we can see different atmospheric factors like temperature, humidity, air pressure, wind, etc. have been mentioned to explain the type of weather that will be experienced by this place, Kolkata. In fact, each of these factors play an important role in determining the weather of a place. In this lesson, we shall discuss about some of these factors. Well, we will first start with an important atmospheric factor, that is temperature. Now here we can see that the temperature experienced by this place is 20 degrees Celsius, and this place will experience a maximum temperature of 24 degrees Celsius and a minimum temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. Now let us see what is meant by atmospheric temperature. Now, you must have experienced that during summer we feel warm and we sweat a lot. On the contrary, during winter we feel too cold and we wrap ourselves with woolen clothes and sit beside a fire in order to seek warmth. So here we find that for some parts of the year, that is during summer months, we feel warm, whereas during winter months we feel cold. Now, this feeling of hotness or coldness is known as the temperature of a place. So, temperature refers to the degree of hotness or the degree of coldness of air. So, atmospheric temperature is known as the degree of hotness and the degree of coldness. Now, this chart shows the climatic conditions of a place for the entire year, and here we find that the temperature varies both daily, that is the day and night temperature varies, as well as temperature varies seasonally. This is to say that the average temperature is quite high in the summer months as compared to the temperatures of the other two seasons, that is monsoon and winter. So, the average temperature during summer months is quite high, whereas the average temperature during winter months is quite low, as we can find in this chart. Also, the temperature varies during day and nights for the entire year. See, the temperatures of the day are quite high while the temperatures of the night are comparatively low. This is because during daytime we experience the overhead sun, so the temperature of the day is quite high, while in the evening as the sun sets the temperature also drops. So we find that temperature varies not only seasonally but also daily, that is the days are warmer than the nights and again the summers are hotter than the winters. Now, temperature not only varies seasonally or daily, but it also varies from one place to another. See, here we have a globe and we can see that the entire globe is divided into various climatic zones based on the temperature conditions. This is to say that the torrid zone or the tropical zone experiences higher temperature, that is this zone is quite warm, whereas the temperate zone experiences moderate temperature, that is this zone is neither too hot nor too cold, whereas the frigid zone or the polar regions are too cold. So from this picture we understand that the distribution of temperature varies with latitudes. Now let us find why. Now, an important factor because of which the distribution of temperature changes with latitude is insolation. Now, insolation refers to the incoming solar radiation received by the Earth. See, the word insolation can be divided into three parts. In stands for incoming, sol stands for solar or the heat coming from the sun, and Asian stands for radiation. So, insolation refers to the radiation coming from the sun and received by the earth. Now the amount of insulation helps to determine the temperature of a place. This is to say that the equatorial region, as we can see here, receives perpendicular or direct rays of the sun, and also the sun's rays are concentrated over a small region. So the rate of insolation is quite high in the torrid zone or tropical zone, and therefore torrid zone and tropical zone has higher temperature. Now as we proceed from the equatorial region towards the poles, we find that the sun's rays are not direct or perpendicular, rather they strike the earth's surface at some angle, and also because of this the sun's rays are scattered over a wide region. Now since the sun's rays are scattered over a wide region, therefore the intensity of sun's rays decreases. Thus we find that as we proceed towards higher latitude, the amount of insolation decreases, and because of this the poles are too cold. Thus here we find that insolation is an important factor that helps to determine the temperature of a place. The temperatures are usually higher in the places where the rate of insolation is quite high, especially in the torrid zone, whereas as we proceed towards higher latitudes, the rate of insolation decreases, because of which the temperature also decreases in higher latitudes. Now on the basis of this, the entire world is divided into various climatic zones or heat zones, and they are torrid zone, which is quite warm. Then we have the temperate zone both in the northern part and in the southern half, and this temperate zone has moderate temperature. That is, it is neither too hot nor too cold. And finally we have the frigid zone around both the poles, that is the north pole and the south pole, and this frigid zone, as mentioned earlier, are too cold. So now that we have understood the meaning of temperature and how it varies with latitudes, let us see how we can measure temperature. Now tell me one thing, when you have high fever, how do you measure your body temperature at home? Well, you do it by using the ordinary thermometer or the clinical thermometer. That is, this device helps to measure our body temperature. However, this ordinary or clinical thermometer that is used by us at our homes does not help to measure atmospheric pressure. So, the device or the instrument that is used for measuring atmospheric temperature is known as 6 maximum and minimum thermometer. Now, this thermometer records the temperature of the day twice. That is, once it records the highest temperature of the day, and again it records the minimum temperature of the day. And in this device, the temperature is measured both in degree centigrade or in degree Fahrenheit. So 6 is maximum and minimum thermometer helps to record the temperature of a place. So till now we have discussed about an important atmospheric factor, that is temperature. Well, now we shall discuss about another atmospheric factor or another element of weather, that is wind. Now here we find that the wind blows at a speed of 11 km per hour in this place, and it also has a direction, that is this arrow shows the direction in which the wind flows. Thus we find that this element of weather, that is wind, has both speed and a direction. Now let us first understand the meaning of wind. Well, moving air is called wind. Now, wind blows at different velocities. It can be as pleasant as a breeze in which the trees and flowers move gently, whereas it can also be violent as a thunderstorm which may uproot the trees. Thus, we find that wind blows at different velocities and it also has a specific direction. Now, let us see how we can measure the direction of a wind flow. Well, the instrument that helps us to determine or find the direction of wind flow is known as Windvane. Say this is the picture of a windvane, and here we can find a cock. Well, let me tell you that this is not an ordinary cock, rather it is a windvane. Now as we can see here in this instrument, 4 main cardinal directions are shown, that is east, west, north, south. Now the arrowhead of this device points the direction from which the wind is coming. Well, the wind is coming from this direction, that is between north and west. So the wind is coming from northwest direction as shown by the arrowhead. So this is how Windvane helps us to determine the direction from which the wind comes. Well, before proceeding with our lesson, let us see if we can answer this. We will have to name the instrument that helps us to determine the direction of wind. Is it rain gauge, windmill, windvane or thermometer? What do you think? Well, the correct answer is windvane. We just studied that windvane is the instrument or device that helps us to determine the direction of wind flow. So the correct option is windvane. Now this is a snapshot of a weather map, and on this map we can see different lines have been marked. Now each of the lines represent isobars. Well, isobars are the lines that joins the places having same atmospheric pressure. So this is an isobar, this is another isobar. Now as we move from one isobar to the another, then the atmospheric pressure changes. Thus, we find that atmospheric pressure is not uniform throughout the globe and it differs. Now, these differences in atmospheric pressure give rise to wind flow. Now, atmospheric pressure are primarily of two types, H and L, where H stands for high air pressure and L stands for low air pressure. Now as mentioned just now, this differences in atmospheric pressure determines the wind flow, and wind always blows from high pressure regions to low pressure regions. That is, if this is a high pressure region and this is a low pressure region, then the wind will blow from the high pressure region to the low pressure region, that is in this direction. So as mentioned just now, the atmospheric pressure is not uniform throughout the globe, and this gives rise to different pressure belts. See, here we have the major pressure belts of the world, and we find that the equatorial region is a low pressure belt and it is followed by a high pressure region, that is the tropical high pressure belt. Again, we have the subpolar low pressure belt, and finally at the poles we have a high pressure belt. Thus, we find that the pressure belts exist alternatively, and this differences in pressure conditions gives rise to wind flow. Now, I also mentioned that wind always blows from a high pressure region to a low pressure region. We can see here that the wind flows in this direction, that is from high pressure region to a low pressure region. Again, let's check this one. Here also we can see that the wind flows from a high pressure region to a low pressure region. So these arrows in the picture shows the direction in which the winds blow, and these winds are active throughout the year and they follow a specific direction. Well, do you know what are these winds called? Now, these winds are called permanent winds. So, what do we understand by permanent winds? Permanent winds blow in a particular direction. That is, these winds are very consistent and they blow from a high pressure to low pressure regions. Now, some examples of permanent winds are trade winds, westerlies and polar easterlies. Now, trade winds, as we can see here, are mainly active in the tropical region, and they blow from subtropical high pressure belt to equatorial low pressure belts, and these winds are named after the direction from which they blow. That is, in the northern half the trade winds blow from northeast direction, so they are known as northeast trade winds, whereas in the southern half they blow from southeast direction, so they are known as southeast trade winds. Now coming to the westerlies. The westerlies, as its name suggests, blow from the west, or they come from the west, and they travel from subtropical high pressure belt to subpolar low pressure belt, and they are known as westerlies both in the southern and in the northern hemisphere. And finally, we have polar easterlies. Polar easterlies originate in the high pressure region of the poles, and they proceed towards the subpolar low pressure belt, and they come from the east, and hence they are known as polar easterlies. So these are some of the important types of permanent winds, and they are trade winds, westerlies and polar easterlies. So permanent winds are the winds that follow a specific direction throughout the year, and the three main types of permanent winds are trade winds, westerlies and polar easterlies. So we learned that permanent winds follow a specific direction throughout the year. But unlike permanent winds, there are some winds that are very inconsistent and they change their direction seasonally. These winds are known as seasonal winds. Now, monsoon winds are examples of seasonal winds. Now, monsoon winds which are active in the Indian Ocean region change their direction seasonally. Now, these winds are influenced by the differences in temperature and pressure conditions of land and sea. This is to say that during summer, the temperature over the land is comparatively higher than that of the sea. So, a low pressure region exists over the land, whereas a high pressure region exists over the sea. Now, since we know that the winds always blow from high pressure to low pressure regions, so the winds existing over the water bodies gets attracted towards the landmass. Now, since these winds originate in the sea, so they are moisture laden and cause heavy rainfall in the Indian landmass. And also another point to be noted is that the winds that are active during summer come from southwest direction. See, here we find that the summer monsoon winds are coming from southwest direction. So just now I mentioned that the summer monsoon winds come from southwest direction, but these winds change their direction during winter. That is, during winter they blow from northeast direction, and this happens because the temperature and pressure conditions gets reversed during winter. During winter, the landmass has lower temperature and a high pressure region exists over the landmass, whereas the water bodies are comparatively cooler, so low pressure region exists over the water bodies. So the winds prevailing over the land proceed towards the water bodies. Now, initially these winds are dry, but as they move over the water bodies, they pick up moisture and cause rainfall. However, unlike summer monsoon winds, the winter monsoon winds causes minimum rainfall. Thus, we find that monsoon winds change their path or direction seasonally. They blow from southwest direction during summer, whereas they come from northeast direction during winter. So because of this, monsoon winds are known as seasonal winds, as they change their course or direction seasonally. Now here we have a clipping of a newspaper. It shows that a severe heat wave has struck the capital city of India, that is Delhi. Now, this heat wave had accentuated the temperature for the season. That is, because of this heat wave, the temperature had increased to about 43 degrees Celsius for this season, and it is the hottest day of the year. Well, do you know what is this heat wave called? Well, the local name of this heat wave is Loo. Heat is a hot, dry, dusty wind, and it is prevalent during summer months, especially during May and June, and they blow over the northern plains of India. Now Lu is responsible for increasing the temperature during summer months, especially in the northern part of India. Now this Lu is an example of local winds. Now what is meant by local winds? Local winds are winds that are effective over a small area and they exist for shorter duration. So Lu, as mentioned just now, is an example of a local wind that is prevalent over a small area, that is over the northern plains of India, and it blows for shorter duration, that is only during summer months, especially in the months of May and June. So we discuss about different types of winds, and the major types of winds are permanent winds, seasonal winds and local winds. Well, permanent winds, as discussed earlier, follow a specific direction throughout the year. Now, some examples of permanent winds are trade winds, westerlies and polar easterlies. Now, unlike permanent winds, seasonal winds change their direction seasonally. That is, they blow from southwest direction during summer, whereas the monsoon winds blow from northeast direction during winter. So seasonal winds, like monsoon winds that are prevalent especially in the Indian Ocean region, change their direction seasonally. Now lastly, we have local winds. Local winds are effective over a small area and also they blow for shorter duration. Now a prominent example of local wind is Lu, that is active over the northern plains of India in the summer months. So in today's lesson, we discuss about two important atmospheric factors or two important elements of weather, that is temperature and wind. At the beginning, we discussed about atmospheric temperature. Temperature refers to the degree of hotness or coldness of a place. And then we discuss how temperature varies seasonally, daily and also from place to place. Now the most important factor that helps to determine the temperature of a place is insolation. And then we also discussed that we can measure the temperature of a place using 6's maximum and minimum thermometer. And then we discussed about wind. Wind refers to moving air. Now wind always blows from high to low pressure regions. The instrument that helps us to determine the wind flow is Windvane. And then we discuss about different types of winds. They are permanent winds, seasonal winds and local winds. So this brings us to the end of today's lesson. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to our 5,000 amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million+ questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubt resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, but it's rewarding too. So register for free now.